This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between Jeremy Scott and the son he'd never known.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's iHeartRadio Week, only on Wheel of Fortune. Tonight, Wheel welcomes multi-platinum winning artist Keith Urban. And viewers at home, it's your chance to win a VIP trip to iHeartRadio's Let Freedom Sing July 4th celebration in Nashville. Watch Wheel of Fortune tonight. Check your local listings.
So wouldn't you know it, too? I get a bloody nose and don't notice it right away till it drips all over a brand new sweatshirt that's cream colored.
Oh, no.
That's like when I do ring announcing up at Grand Casino Hinckley for Grand Friday Night Fights. All fights sanctioned by the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, Department of Athletic Regulation, by the way. And you have a black tux because you do enough fights, Tennessee, you're going to get spattered with blood. And it ain't yours, it's somebody else's. And so, if you take a real close look, it obviously blends into the black that if you're not looking for it, you can't see it. But if you look really close with a fine-tooth comb or a magnifying glass, you can see little tiny drops here, there, and everywhere. Now my sweatshirt's just covered in it. And I just got it. I got it when I went to Dahlgreen. It's a Dahlgreen golf course.
It's a good-looking sweatshirt.
Pro came up, introduced himself to Sauce and I, Larry Mondello guy. What I loved was Larry Manila guy didn't get there till a little later. So when Pro came up to give us our little grab bag, he says, "Yeah, I got each one of you got a sweatshirt in there. Common, I got a large for you, and I thought Meat Sauce you would be an extra large." Always.
I always love that one.
But yeah, so we got that, and now it's just covered in blood. And then here's what's even worse. I explained last segment that during breaks I'm frantically searching for something to talk about because I have zero preparation today, right?
Huh?
Today. Not every day.
Yeah, as opposed to previous days.
So I spent the last break washing blood out of my sweatshirt, and then I looked down and it's all over the front of it now, too. I look like I was in a prize fight. But it's not so much blood what you would say, well, I got the worst of it. I probably won a split decision. You sent me this... is it called a screenshot when you have a tweet and you send it to me? Is that what that is?
I'm actually sending you the link to it.
Link to it, okay.
The screenshot would just be a picture of it.
Okay, so you sent me a link. Dan Hayes, who writes Twins baseball for The Athletic, also a preposterous statement tournament champion.
Yeah.
He won 4 years ago, whenever it was. His preposterous statement wasn't his. It takes a lot of time.
It was probably 4 years ago because it was during the pandemic.
Okay, and you need spring training because it takes a lot of time to develop the stamina to stand out in the field for 9 innings. I think it was something to that effect. But he sent out hashtag MN Twins. Twins drew 9,075 fewer fans over their first 3 games this season compared to last year's trio, which included a Monday.
You've got to be kidding me.
Why do you point out a Monday? Was last year was there a Monday last year and not this year, or was it?
Well, there wasn't this year, so they must have had a Monday game last year, which people are less likely to show up on Mondays.
Okay, all right. I don't know if there's anything to read into that. The weather, I think, still generally. By the way, did we get a number? Were we were sold out for the opener? I'm assuming. I think we sell every ticket. I don't think the Twins, sell 9,000 tickets or 10,000 or 22. I think they sell out. It's just, will everybody show up? I mean, if it's snow, sleet, rain, snow, sleet, gloom at night, I think some people will just stay home. And most people tough it out. It's an event, right? Opening day is an event. It's like Lil B used to go all the time with her gal pals, and then that's the last time she would go to a game, right? As far as I know.
They had 36,873 for the opener. I don't know what technically is a sellout for the Twins.
Yeah. Now, and let me ask you, does it state there, is that actual people that came through the turnstiles? Or is
I'm sure it's paid.
Yeah, right, exactly, paid. So I don't know how many were there. And again, I'd have to compare what was the weather like last year. See, to me, weather has so much to do with it. Because there were 9,000 less, that's not good for the bottom line. But I don't know if that's actually a statement on how fans feel about the Twins. I think
capacity at Target Field says almost 40,000. So okay. I would guess at 36.8. Close to a sellout, but I don't know if that would be determined a sellout.
So there you go. And I know at least.
But I don't know, because even like the Wild, like they consider it, if it's 18,000, that's a sellout, but they can fit up to like 19,000 in there.
Right. So again, I don't know. You'd have to. I think you do have to compare weather. I think weather will keep some people away. So are there 9,070 fewer fans over those 3 games because Susie had a dance recital that weekend, right? And that's why one family didn't go. Billy had a they're done playing. Are they still doing travel basketball? I think that's over. Billy had some kind of a tournament, so they couldn't go. Was it all weather related? Were people just like, yeah, I got tickets, but guess what? Or I was going to buy tickets, but I'm not going to a game in which it's going to be 36 degrees out. Or if
yesterday was pretty decent.
Yeah, yesterday was. Or if it's people are just they just think, for bang for my buck, I just going to a ball game just doesn't do it for me. I just the team isn't there. They're just they didn't put any extra. See, I just don't know how many people tend to be are like. I've talked so often about the different types of fans that are out there. You have from one, searching for a word again, 1 degree to another, where you have some people that live, eat, breathe, sleep. They love it. They break down stats. They want to win, and everything's important to them. And then you go all the way to the others that just say, I just go because there's something to do. I'd like them to win, but if they don't, I don't care. I'm not even paying attention most of the game. I got my kids with me. I'm trying to make sure they don't get hit by a baseball. I'm taking them to the bathroom. I'm buying them concessions. The kids would like to see the team win, but they're not that serious about it either. So you have different types of fans. And I don't know if that first group I mentioned, the ones that are really into it and they want to see wins and they want to see them now, the people that respond to the message boards, the people that listen to KFAN radio, the people that do go to a lot of games, invest a lot of time in baseball, going to games or watching them on TV, if they're starting to turn their back on the club, and if they are, is it all because of what I think a lot of people perceive, and I think rightly so, that the franchise itself isn't, the ownership that isn't really all in, because they, particularly that last cut in payroll after they had finally won the division. They won a playoff series. They finally broke that 0-for-18 streak. And then they win a playoff series, and then during the offseason, they announced that they're going to cut payroll. And I think that really did turn a lot of people off.
Well, I'm looking at last year's weather for their series against Cleveland. So it's only a 2-game series against Cleveland. On the 4th, which was opening day, it was 45 degrees. On the 6th, it was 54 degrees. Okay. So relatively comparable to.
Okay.
Definitely yesterday. It was 55. And then I was reading. Can I just read the entire Aaron Gleeman paragraph?
Yes. About
this topic in The Athletic?
Sure, I'd love to hear.
Because he had a story called like nine numbers that are concerning. And then one of the numbers was 67,503. He writes, failing to sell out opening day wasn't a surprise given how far fan morale has plummeted since October 2023. But it was still somewhat jarring to see Target Field roughly 2/3 full for the opener, despite decent weather by April standards, a prominent opponent, and heavily discounted tickets. But what should really have Twins officials worried is how fast attendance cratered once the automatic draw of opening day was gone. Game 1, 36,873. Game 2, 6,082. Game 3, 14,638. He says selling just 67,503 tickets for the opening 3 games can't be ignored. By comparison, the Twins sold 61,401 tickets for the first 2 games against the Cleveland Guardians last season before the 3rd game was rained out. 2 years ago, also facing Houston for 3 games, they sold 79,111 tickets. He says anyone trying to blame the fans for the low turnout hasn't been paying attention. Actions have consequences. You get the audience you deserve.
Yeah, and that's where I guess he's answering the question I have, at least in Gleeman's eyes and ears. He does think it's definitely fan apathy. And, not necessarily a boycott, but people are just saying, I ain't going to go. I'm just not going to do it. Ain't going to work. And now the team's up for sale, which actually I think that's actually been inspired part of the fan base for sure, that they're, the ones that I've convinced, remember, it's my fault that they're selling. I was blamed by Star Tribune columnists, Fish Wrap Factory, West Side columnist, Jim Sue and LaBelle Neal III, that people have listened to me and that they have decided it's all the Pohlads' fault because they don't spend enough money, so I'm the reason. So if the Twins sell, and I think most fans like that, you have me to thank, and I don't mind taking the credit. I really don't. But yeah,
you said fault. I wouldn't say fault. I'd say credit. I'd like to credit you.
Thank you. So yeah, and the money, the revenue sharing that there is. I don't remember what the there's a pool of money for the national broadcasts, right? On MLB and Fox and all that. And then that money is split up 30. Is it 32 teams in baseball or 30? I think it's 30. And that's split up. I remember reading that story several years ago. The number then was like the Twins get every team gets $100 million check from Major League Baseball before the season even starts. So you have that money. After that, it's local media. And we know that the Twins at one time when they were on Valley Sports North, they were getting, I thought that number, I think their last year was like 50 or 54 million. And now they're barely getting anything, if anything, right? And so you are basically, any additional revenue you are going to make on the season is going to come through ticket sales, swag sales, and through concessions. And it doesn't seem like they're getting a whole heck of a lot of that yet. Maybe when the weather gets better. And look, Tenneby, I guarantee you, if the team, let's say, starts playing better, and let's say they're like last year. They get out to it. They're winning the division. Let's say that holds on through September. They'll sell a lot more tickets because it's bandwagon. It really is. Guys are laying it on the line. And I think they would sell more tickets. And that's what winning will do. If you win, people show up. If they don't, they won't. It's a pretty simple formula. We'll take a break. I've got to do some more cleanup for my bloody nose. And controversial Vikings news other side of the break. Common Man program on the Fan.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Want to chime in on what's happening with your favorite KFAN program? Make your voice heard in the Bradshaw and Bryan text line. Let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard message and data rates apply.
Couple 13-14 pass, big ticket back from a week away. JG also in, so I think we're pretty much back.
Got the band back together.
Though I think Meat Sauce is out for a few days, but he will be back later in the week. I think he's doing in-law visitation, so good for him. A number of text messages have come into the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Of course, we're broadcasting from the 651 Carpets Plus studios, the climate-controlled 651 Carpets Plus studios. This one says, regarding the Twins and my beating the drum about the Pohlads' lack of spending on payroll, I was just going to say that a common thank you very much. So there are people that do want to thank me for that. Here's another that says, typical comment, toughing out a major nosebleed to appease his listeners. Now that's dedication. And it was, you saw it, Tenneby. It was pouring blood. And, but I'm built different, tough guy. So I came through. A lot of people have weighed in about, well, here's one again regarding the nosebleed. It says, maybe Rosen could take note, Common gutting it out over the airways despite having lost roughly a third of his blood to a serious ailment. No ambulance called, stays on the air, no selfie on social media, desperately seeking attention from his adoring fans. I could go on, but I think we get the picture. I think he's referring to when Rosen got stung by the bee.
Yes.
And the ambulance was there and we had to send out selfies. Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. I mentioned it. Tenneby looked, he saw me pouring blood and said, I'll go on while you go ahead and get yourself stitched up. Here's one. My buddy was given 2 tickets by Twin staff at the drive-through breakfast, so definitely was not sold out. They were handing out tickets that morning. So you mentioned the 36,000. They can see over 40. And so obviously, yeah, they weren't sold out. People are... I think people...
Now, that was the worst weather day of the group, I believe.
That was bad.
But still, that's also the one day where people are buying them well in advance.
This one says, I was at the opener last year, and it was not great weather. 40s, overcast, and some wind. This one says, comment, hard to get behind the Twins if ownership doesn't get behind them as well. And I think that is at the crux of it. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think that's...
If you're not going to invest in your team, then the fans aren't going to invest in your team.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. Here's even someone that says, taking a page from Common Man's book, it says, I feel like your time as well as your listeners' time is so valuable. Me personally, I don't understand why you waste any time talking about the Twins. I wouldn't watch a Twins game if it were 80 degrees and in my own backyard. Anyway, keep up keep on doing what you do. Super Rube, Paul, and not Subaru, but Super Rube, Paul. And that was my bit. I used to say all the time, I wouldn't go see so-and-so if they were playing in my backyard. And yeah, it is hard. And the players are, I think the players are giving it all they got. They're trying to win, but, when ownership isn't, I think for the most part, upholding their end of the bargain. And then the crazy part was, we didn't even talk about this much, Tenneby, when they, it looked like the Twins were going to be sold to the guys that own the Phoenix Suns, Ishibas, whoever the brothers. And they decided they're out. They own part of the Mets. They're going to dig deeper into the Mets. And Joe Pohlad, who is the nephew of Jim. Jim was running. After Carl and Louise went to the great beyond, I think Jim was the one who was basically responsible for the day-to-day operations of the team, and he finally turned it over to Joe last year, and Joe made the statement that, if we sell the team, I'd still like to be the guy running it, which...
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I don't know of any ownership group that would agree to that. Tenneby, let's say you and I are the Tenneby brothers.
Yeah.
And we decide we want to buy a club, because I kind of want to run it.
We want our own guys. Yeah, we want to do it.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of fun, and all of a sudden, well, wait a minute. I saw what you did when you ran it.
We don't want to run it the way you're running it.
Yeah, we don't want to run it the way but maybe, of course, I guess what Pohlad would be saying is, well, if you give me money, unlimited budget, I could probably put together a pretty good team. They just didn't do it with their own money, is what they didn't want to do. And I sort of, when we talked about this, when that news first appeared before our very eyes, I defended Joe to a certain extent that I think we've seen oftentimes where when there is a switch in ownership of something, they'll have somebody stay on for a while to kind of show them how to do it, right? Because oftentimes people buy business. You know, I think I brought this up before.
Glenn Taylor's done it for 2 years.
Well, that's it. Well, over at Mystic Lake, when they built a golf course, Betty, she owned Lone Pine. They had her son run the golf course for a while because they didn't know anything about the golf course. They knew about building casinos.
Sure.
So when they built the golf course, they said, why don't you run it for us? So I could see where you go. If you bought the team, you'd go, okay, hey, until we get our feet under us, why don't you run it? It's been done before.
It's called a transition.
Yeah, a transition. Yeah. I just don't think I've ever heard of that happening. Maybe somebody else has some knowledge of this. I don't think I've ever heard that happening at any time in professional sports where a franchise is sold to another ownership group and the current ownership group has people that stand by. They might be there behind the scenes, but not actually making the day-to-day decisions of the team. They'll go, okay, well, how do you do this? Well, you got the concessions people you got to deal with, and you got to deal with the city, and you got to deal with this, and you got to deal with, whatever it is, all the things that go on behind the scenes that guys like you and I have no idea what goes on. All we see is what is out in the field. That's all we see. We don't know anything else. But yeah, and I don't think that was going to go over well with anybody. I don't think. I don't know who would. Then there's this one. I have more joy when the Twins lose. I love to hear you guys rip them. Okay. Here's another. Invest in the team. The payroll's over $130 million for ball players. Should they all be paid $1 billion? I hope the team is relocated so I can focus on paying college ball more money. Ishbia's was the White Sox, not the Mets. I apologize. Steve is the one that said invest in the team, payroll for $130 million for ball players, should they all be paid $1 billion? Steve, I think, tends to be, I recognize the text message number. I think he likes to be a gadfly.
Sure.
He likes to be an agitator, as we like to call him. I don't think every player should be paid $1 billion, but you should be paid what the market bears, right? Now, you can say, well, this market bears $130 billion. That's all. I don't have a problem with athletes making an astronomical amount of money. If that's the kind of, I've said this before, if that's the kind of money that's generated by your business, you should be paid accordingly. And so that's why, I don't know if they're losing money every year in Los Angeles with the Dodgers and losing with the Mets and losing with the Yankees, but if you're making whatever amount, let's say the team, for simplicity, is making $1,000 a year, I don't think ownership should be taking $900 of it. No one goes to a game to watch Joe Pohlad sit in the owner's suite. They don't care. It's the guys that are performing. It's the players on the field that should get the lion's share of the money, I feel, because that's what people are paying money to watch. So, $130 is just $130 million ain't a whole heck of a lot of money. Our final break. Controversial Vikings news next. Common Man program on the Fan.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
I just knew him as a kid.
Long, silent voices from his past came forward.
And he was just staring at me.
And they had secrets of their own to share.
Gilbert King. I'm the son of Jeremy Lynn Scott.
I was no longer just telling the story. I was part of it.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between a killer and the son he'd never known.
If the cops and everything would have done their job properly, my dad would have been in jail. I would have never existed.
I never expected to find myself in this place. Now, I need to tell you how I got here.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Bone Valley, Season 2. Jeremy.
Jeremy, I want to tell you something.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to hear the entire new season ad-free with exclusive content starting April 9th, subscribe to Lava for Good Plus on Apple Podcasts.
Catch the tourney finals with us. Join Max Fuller tonight for a KFAN tournament finals watch party at the Rabbit Hole in Minneapolis. Stop by starting at 7:30 to see a champion crown with our own Max Fuller. And make sure to ask us how you can secure your own KFAN swag. Get the full details now at KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Since returning from injury, Joker averages 40.2 points a game, 12.2 rebounds, almost 9 assists a game. Tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, Tennessee. I'm not paying as close attention to the National Basketball Association in general and the Denver Nuggets and Joker specifically. You know, I've had this, I think you call it the act like you've been there before, right? Most players, I don't think, abide by that credo. No. I think they basically, you know, they flex and they do. That's fine. You know, it's not my cup of tea, but I don't ever remember the Joker like getting that too emotionally worked up, or have I just not watched enough? I don't remember him like pumping his fist and flexing. He seems to just take it in stride from what I've been able to. I think that
is accurate, and
I like that.
You like that? I
let my actions. They speak louder than words, or flexing is what they do. One other Twins note. You may have mentioned this in 534, but I really wasn't listening. I was just trying to digest my food and stanch the bleeding of my nose. But Royce Lewis, who's been out since, I think it was during spring training, I think it was mid-March, he had what I don't remember exactly how they phrased it. It was a moderate strain, I think was the way they...
Mild?
Yeah. They used either moderate or mild as the word to describe the hamstring. It was a strain of his left hamstring while running out a ground ball in Fort Myers. Fish Wrap Factory West Side says Lewis cleared by the Twins to begin a limited running program Saturday, which doesn't sound like a big step. Less like Lewis, you've suffered 2 major injuries in the past 13 months simply by running. Lewis said, anytime they let me do something more, it's always pretty good. I'll probably run 3 days in a row, take a break, then try to get on the bases. It's a long progression. I think I'm healthier than Royce Lewis. I really do. And I'm 66 years old. I think I could go through an entire major league season and not get injured. I don't know how these guys, especially he's had an
especially
injury.
Running the bases.
It's just running the bases.
Yes.
It's crazy. And that is, I think, as we were trying to handicap the Twins, as we do every year, especially going into, ever since Byron Buxton became a member of a team, it's always kind of been, well, you know, you always preface everything you talk about the Twins basically by saying, well, if they stay healthy, if Buxton does this, if Lewis does this, if Correa does that. So far, so good. Correa and Buxton, they've played in every game. I don't think maybe they've gotten a day off that I missed. Maybe there was a day, but it seems like they've played every game.
They've been healthy, yeah.
And they've been healthy, which to me that's more of a lead story than anything else, whether you want to talk about attendance or pitchers not going deep enough into games or... By the way, several people texted, and again, they had differing opinions on the Jacks. I was ripped by a couple of text messages, including one that said, "Why don't you do some research and at least watch a game once in a while?" Because I was wondering why Jacks was in the 9th inning and not Duran. Apparently, Duran pitched the 8th. Someone said, "Oh, Jacks has been closing since last year." Somebody else said, "No, what's happened is it's a situational thing that." Baldelli kind of goes back and forth. And again, is that overthinking it? I don't know. A player probably knows or a manager knows where his players are as far as where they've been, where they're going, where they're at, and how effective they've been in this, that, and that. But I think that to me, that's the lead story is of the big three, if you want to call them that. And I think that would be accurate. Lewis, Buxton, Correa. 2 of them haven't missed any games. Only one has. Because you almost want to go into every season doing the Buxton watch. And we kind of do. We always kind of just wait. When is that first injury going to occur? And he's been stealing bases. He's been covering a lot of ground out in the field, and he hasn't come up lame yet, which to me is maybe astonishing is a bit too strong. But I think it's.
Well, it's been 9 games.
Yeah, but still,
not going to get excited about 9 games.
For me, I'm surprised. If you would have said over under, I would have said in the cold weather, when guys aren't as loose, I would have said he would have missed games already. I would have thought, matter of fact, if you would have said which of the 3 is going to get injured first, I would have picked Buxton. So you're right not to get too excited. I still think, to me, that 2 of the 3 haven't missed any games. To me, is a big.
I think maybe if Royce Lewis was healthy, then I think it might have been more of a story for all 3 of them. But because Lewis got hurt,
I'm going to give it back to you again because I got. Oh, by the way, someone says with That's not what I wanted. I don't have any breaking news. This one says, in regards to Joker, it's his personality is shown. He has 0 shown emotions, and I think that is. But that's what I like. Like a guy. I just like a guy that it's just 6 of one to half a dozen of the other. Here's one that says, there has to be something genetically wrong with the young man. I can't believe it. A 20-something-year-old athlete shouldn't have such fragile hamstrings. Doesn't he stretch? I think you've nailed it when you talk about they work so hard on conditioning.
Overtrain.
They overtrain. I think they overtrain is what they do. This one says, why don't you go to the hospital and get your nose checked during your commercial breaks? You'll have plenty of time. They're not that long. And those are important messages. Telling you
extremely important.
All of our advertising partners, all their goods and services and such like that. I'm going to throw this one on you, Tim, to be Mr. Hockey Guy. Let's go back to the Wild again for a second. So let's forget about what happens the rest of this year. Okay? Make the playoffs, lose in the first round, Western Conference. We're out from under the onerous Parise Suter contracts for the most part, right? And that's what we've all been waiting for. It's almost like getting paroled from prison. We've been waiting. You've served your time. Now it's free at last, blah, blah, blah. Should have plenty more money in the salary. What would you, if you were Billy Guerin, you're in charge of the team, what do you think the biggest issues are? I don't know if you have free agent lists in front of you. You probably don't.
I don't.
But I mean,
I know that Brock Nelson.
Okay.
Is available because that name has been tied to the Wild this summer. He's from here. He's from Moore Road.
Okay. But what would you? And I'm not trying to catch you off guard, but I guess I am. Because we don't prep at all. We don't prepare it. Because suppose I could have asked you before the show. Hey, I'm going to ask you later about what you would do with the Wild. But is there anything that's glaring right away that you say? I mean, you got to get Kaprizov signed. Is that number 1 on the list?
Number 1 with the bullet.
Yeah.
And that's the most concerning thing about this slide we've had here, or the last month and 2, is going into the season, the belief was, hey, the Wild are going to be able to offer Kaprizov as much as anyone, right? So if Kaprizov's looking for money, the Wild will not have an issue there. Obviously, because of those Parise and Suter buyouts finally coming off this summer. If there is an issue with his contract, it's he doesn't believe the Wild can win moving forward. So many thought, hey, the Wild got to show they can win this year to prove to Kaprizov that he should stay here. And while Kaprizov was in the lineup for the first 2-3 months, I guess they were proving that. And they were, other than Winnipeg, they had one of the best records in the Western Conference. But we've also now seen, and I know Kaprizov hasn't been the only one hurt during this stretch, right? I mean, Eriksson Ek is very important. He's been out. They've had stretches without Brodin. Hartman got suspended for 7-8 games there. So Kaprizov's not the only one, but I think what Kaprizov has shown you is, I think we all knew how valuable he was. But to see how this team had produced offensively and how they won games with him and how they've been completely inept in those areas without him, he's extremely, 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 extremely important. So they have to sign him. Now, Kaprizov might look at this slide they've had without him and go, man, this isn't a very good team without me. And I could go somewhere else where I'm going to have more help and I can have chances to raise Lord Stanley. So that's going to be the talker. We really haven't gotten into it just because we've been focused on the season and trying to just make the playoffs. But once the season's over, that's a topic A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But then after that, to your point, now he's going to take a good chunk of that money that that's going to be freed up because I bet he's going to be making 14, 15 a year. And
let me interject real quick. He's not really publicly at all even tipped his hand at all what he wants to do. It's nothing, right?
He hasn't really, no.
Yeah, okay.
And out of all the players, he's kind of the one who talks to the media least.
Yes.
You've got the language barrier to a certain extent.
Yep.
So sometimes I think he feels uncomfortable talking to media in case he says something wrong.
Right. Which you would think would stop Meat Sauce from ever uttering a word on the fan if he was thinking the same thing, but that's another story.
We've really heard nothing about that. So, he'll have 1 year left in his contract after this season. So if he's not returning, if you can't agree to a contract, you have to trade him. You have to try to recoup something for him.
Because you get a boatload? I mean, you probably won't get in return what you give up. I mean, one of the best players in the league, but yeah, my guess is
you'd get a lot for him, but the other team that's going to acquire him has to be able to afford him.
Right.
Because he's going to cost a lot. And to a certain extent, it's almost like he has a no trade clause because he's not going to agree to a contract with anyone that he doesn't want to be traded to. So it's not like you're just free. You're not just going to be able to freely trade him to any of the 32 teams the 31 other teams in the National Hockey League. Because they're not going to make that trade and acquire him without knowing he's going to sign a contract extension. So he still, to a certain extent, can kind of pick his place. So, yeah, we've been kind of distracted by the Kaprizov stuff just because everything else has been going on. He had the injuries and just trying to make a playoff spot. That will be a potentially tenuous situation in the offseason. But if you do get him signed and re-signed, then the obvious answer is he needs support offensively. You need players in your top six. I think defensively, this team should be pretty good for the foreseeable future. I know Brodin and Spurgeon are getting up in age, but Brock Faber's young. He's a stud. Jake Middleton's in his prime. The Zeev Buium, who plays for the University of Denver, who will probably sign after they play in the Frozen Four here. I don't know if he'll get a look or not at the end of the season next week, but he appears to be a complete steal who they drafted in the first round last year. And then I don't know about David Juracek, who they gave up almost like an entire draft for earlier in this season, but still a prospect. So they have some young defensemen. Gustafson's rebound, I think, has been very encouraging from a goaltending standpoint moving forward. He's still young. You still have a nice young talent and a guy like Matt Boldy. But after that, they need to fill out this top six. And obviously that includes Kirill Kaprizov. But, Zuccarello is going to be aging out at some point. He's getting up there in age. And they are just a team that's built on a bunch of third line type guys. And they need to get more top six guys. So I think that would, the easy thing is that's what you want to address in free agency and is, a little bit clearer it's not like you have multiple positions you have to try to fit in here.
Erickson, who I thought we refer to him as Eki on this show, and we do.
Eki.
Here's another one that says, why is everyone ignoring how injury-prone Kaprizov and Ek have been the past few seasons? If your best players can't stay on the ice, it's really a no-brainer. Is it really a no-brainer to resign them? You just talked about how crippled the Twins have been by injuries to their star players. Your thoughts? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I'm trying to just look over. Joel Eriksson Ek has played a good chunk of the seasons he's been in. I know he was hurt in the playoff series against Dallas, so maybe that's what sticks out. But before this year, he played 77 games last season, 78 games the year before that, 77 games the year before that. So that's 3 seasons of almost playing every game.
Yeah.
And frankly, he plays a style of play where he's going to get beat up. He's a 200-foot player. He's playing physically in both the offensive, defensive ends. He gets to the net where you get beat up a lot. That's just his style of play. He's going to get bumps and bruises.
Yeah.
And frankly, they probably need more guys that are willing to go to those areas. They don't have a lot of those types of players right now. So, Yeah, you could go with your Marcus Johansson to stay healthy, but then they just stay on the perimeter and don't get involved with any of the contact. Well, what would you rather have? I think Joel Eriksson Ek has been relatively healthy over the course of his career. Unfortunately, he's been hurt this year, and he had the moment against the Dallas Stars where he missed the playoff series.
And I'm going to go out on a limb here.
And what was the other guy he brought up? Kaprizov?
Kaprizov and Eki.
He's had 2 injuries. Right. I think the thing with Kaprizov is his skating is so dynamic that it's like his style of skating is hard on your body, if that makes sense. Like what he's doing with his legs when you're spreading them out into the mohawk, and he does so much of that other people just can't do, that it just might be more demanding on those types of muscles, your hips, your hip flexors, and your groin muscles, and that entire area.
Well, and injuries in hockey, it's a contact sport. Baseball's not. When you're just running the bases and you get hammy, you get strained. To me, that's a little bit of a different story.
Well, a bunch of these guys are playing hurt that you don't ever even hear of.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's... I still remember Andrew Burnett playing an entire half a season on a torn ACL.
Ouch.
Didn't say a word. Nobody knew about it. They're all beat up to a certain extent.
Last one for you, Tennessee. I've had some harebrained, brilliant ideas when it comes to sports over the years. Sign 4 or 5 running backs. Sign a 7-2 basketball center to your football team to block field goal attempts at the line of scrimmage. Find a sumo wrestler, put some hockey equipment on it, and put him between the pipes, right?
I'd like to put him on our offensive line, too,
right,
after watching that one against Micah Parsons.
Exactly. Carolina Panthers apparently are thinking the same way I am, Tennessee.
Really?
Yeah, this story... Carolina Panthers are taking a flyer on a rookie center, basketball center, that is. The team announced today it signed Coastal Carolina center Colin Granger, who will try to make the transition to tight end. Granger is automatically the tallest player on Carolina's roster, coming in at 6'9", 225 pounds.
Wow.
This past season with the Chanticleers, I did not realize that Coastal Carolina were called the Chanticleers, not the Chandeliers, but the Chanticleers. Granger shot 57.9% from the field while averaging 7.2 points and 4.4 rebounds per game. The Georgia native started his college basketball career at Ohio University before transferring to Western Carolina in 2002 and Coastal Carolina in 2024. He joins a tight end room that includes Tommy Tremble, Jatavion Sanders, James Mitchell, Jordan Matthews, and Dominique Daphne. Basketball players making the switch from the hardwood to the gridiron is not unheard of. Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez are 2 of the well-known former college basketball players who develop into star tight ends, and now Granger will get that opportunity. Your thoughts tend to be big, tall tight end. If he's athletic...
Well, did you say he was 6'9", 225?
Yeah.
That seems a little slender.
It does.
That seems a little thin.
We can bulk him up.
As you mentioned, we've had a history of college basketball players going to the NFL and being successful tight end. 2 basic Hall of Famers,
yes.
Right? But those guys seem to have a little more muscle to them, a little more thicker. 6'9", 225, I feel like he could get pushed around a little bit. So maybe the plan is to throw some weight on him this offseason and try to get him up into the 240 range.
Right.
And give him a chance.
I'm sure they'll try to put some weight on him, definitely. And you've brought up this point on a couple of occasions. I think you're one of the only ones because you have a great football mind. I also think the esoteric approach is starting to catch on with you a little bit by osmosis, by working with me. Whereas football is probably the easiest sport to learn to play.
Yeah.
Really, maybe not quarterback. I'm not suggesting you could just, hey, let's take a pitcher from baseball and turn him into a quarterback because he's got a good arm. But playing the line and such like that, there's techniques. I'm not suggesting, I don't want people to, I played both sides of the ball. I was a fierce pass rushing, rock and Gibraltar run stopping, defensive lineman, precise route running, short pass catch. But there are guys that you've heard before, they took up football in their senior year in high school, and all of a sudden, they're first-round draft picks in the National Football League.
Patrick Mahomes, I think, didn't play until his freshman year. He didn't play till high school.
Exactly. Because
football is a game of running and catching are basic skills that every human being basically learns.
Correct.
Now, some are better at it than others.
Yes.
Some are more athletic. But it's not like hockey where you got to learn how to skate at a certain, it's a certain distinct skill. Basketball, you got to learn how to have a touch on your shot.
Correct.
Baseball, like you got to have some repetitions of hitting a baseball with a bat, whereas football's just, well, can you run really fast? And are you athletic? Sure, you can play football.
I think you could take a guy that's running a jackhammer out of 494 and turn him into an all-pro right tackle. I really think you can. If you're big, take up a lot of space, have decent footwork, I think you can learn to play in the National Football League. Maybe the Vikings will go that way. Of course, we don't need it. We got the tight end room all situated. Henry, thanks for having me.
Hey, great job.
I thought, especially for somebody who was playing hurt, bleeding profusely, a couple of people have suggested get your nose cauterized. I know you can do that, and that will stanch the bleeding forever. But I kind of like the sympathy I get and the tough guy look to be just have blood pouring out of your nose while you're on the air. So I'll consider it, and maybe I'll do that sometime in the near future. We're back tomorrow at 12 noon. Big Ticket and JG are next right here on The Fan.
Good night. Good morning. Good afternoon. And good night, Minnesota.
And good night, folks. And good night, Mrs. Calabash. Wherever you are.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.
Something unexpected happened after Jeremy Scott confessed to killing Michelle Schofield in Bone Valley Season 1.
Every time I hear about my dad, it's, oh, he's a killer. He's just straight evil.
I was becoming the bridge between Jeremy Scott and the son he'd never known.
At the end of the day, I'm literally a son of a killer.
Listen to new episodes of Bone Valley Season 2 starting April 9th on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.